Really good to see every one of you here today. Looking at the amount of tanned faces I see, some of you probably spent yesterday getting your yards all fixed, didn't you? Getting it all ready and tilled, and I imagine farmers were out there plowing it, getting ready for seed. Some of you might even have put some seed in the ground. Every hour, we put in between 2,500 and 3,300 seeds in our brains. That's the amount of thoughts that we have in an hour. That's a lot. That's between 50,000 and 80,000, or more like 60,000, for those of you following me in the math, 60,000 and 80,000 thoughts in an hour, in a day, in a 24-hour period. And that's not in our subconscious. The number of thoughts in our subconscious brain is so many that I can't pronounce it. It's one with 16 zeros. And that is in a second that your subconscious is busy working. And so we literally become what we think. If you were out there yesterday and you tilled your yard and you got the ground going and it just had the right amount of fertilizer in and moisture in, and you put your seeds down, you can come back after a while. And Brad, like you just read, there will just be good stuff, right? There will be no weeds. No, unfortunately, there will be weeds also. And so while we are in this world, we cannot help but have good seed and bad seed coming to us. But it is what we do with those seeds. And so I have some extra verses to read today. The first one is Proverbs 4, verse 23. The bulk of our lesson will be in the scripture that we've just read. But in the G&T version of Proverbs 4, verse 23, listen very carefully. It says, "Be careful how you think. Be careful how you think. Your life is shaped by your thoughts." Do you believe that? Do you believe the Bible can lie? Or do you believe this is the truth? Your life is literally shaped by what you are thinking. You can't prevent circumstances in your life from happening, but you can determine how you're going to think about them. A lady said to me this week, she said, "I have so many things in my life that is stressful. But one of the things that consumes me is I'm needing to take care of my aging mother. And I cannot get this out my mind. It is all consuming. It is very hard to do this." About a year ago, I attended a seminar at Midwestern about brain science. And so I got to think about the different ways we think about stuff. The way endorphins can act in our brains, making us feel good, one of the 5 happy things. And in cortisol, one of the stress hormones, what it does to us. And so I thought about this, and if I had to ask Matt, just quickly put him on the spot, and I say, "Matt, how can she think about this? What did I tell her?" Knowing what I know about brain science, what did I tell her about how taking care of her aging mother can actually be a very good thing for her? Endorphins. Does what? It doubles, right? When you are taking care of somebody. So it's just your perspective. It's like we talked about last week. All of us end in various circumstances. Sometimes you'll find somebody jumping out the airplane, 2 people jumping out of airplane with a parachute. The one is so scared and the other one is exhilarated and having the best time of their life. It just depends on how you think about whatever the world is putting inside of you. And so Paul said, take every thought captive to the obedience of Christ. Every thought captive to the obedience of Christ. Paul also said, do not be deceived. Bad company corrupts good morals. Why? Because that's where you're getting your information from. We turn on the news and we get information. This week I was very attentive to this. And so, Kevin, I was watching the car channels. Because they weren't stressing me out. It was nice, it was wonderful seeing what people would do, and it wasn't bothering me. But if you watch a lot of murders and things like that all the time from the TV, that's going to affect you. That's producing cortisol, and the cortisol is going to stress you out. Also in Matthew 17, verse 20, Jesus describes what an incredible potential this lesson could have in your life. The fact that you can know, leaving here today, that how you think about stuff will change you, can absolutely change your life for the better. Here he says, I say to you, if you have faith, and this is Matthew 17, he's come off the Mount of Transfiguration, there's a girl with an evil spirit in her. This type can only be cast out through prayer and fasting and so on. And then Jesus is continuing to talk to them about, oh, ye of little faith and so on. He concludes by saying, I say to you, if you have faith like a grain of a mustard seed, you will say to this mountain, move from here to there, and it will move. And nothing will be impossible for you. Again, do you believe that Jesus is telling the truth, or do you believe he's lying? He's just said, nothing will be impossible for you. A few months ago, Lucinda Jones was in our area, and homes that will make us weak. And once we've found out that these things are making us weak, we need to eliminate them. But while these men were sleeping, the enemy, his enemy, that is the devil, verses 39a tells us it's the devil, came and sowed weeds among the wheat and went away. Isn't he crafty? Jack, if he sowed the weeds and then he stayed there, we could have seen him. When we woke up, we could have realized, hey, the enemy's done something. Let's find out what he did. But no, he doesn't do that. He will sow it into your heart. He will open the door a crack. He will just make a suggestion to you. Just let you, well, it's not going to be that bad. It's just one little drink, or it's just one little this, or it's just, and he gets you just to think about it. And then he goes away. And then that thought, you see, that seed keeps going in your brain, and you can't leave it alone. And it keeps festering. And eventually, it's going to bring forth death. Verse 26, so when the plants came up and bore grain, then the weeds appeared also. And the servants of the master of the house came and said to him, Master, did you not sow good seed? That's the believers. Did you not sow believers in your field, in the world? How does it have weeds? How does your world, your field, have unbelievers? Verse 38c tells us these are unbelievers. Verse 28 now. He said to them, an enemy has done this. So the servant said to him, then do you want us to go and gather them? So it seems like we, with our wisdom, we're continually making mistakes, Brian, right? Must I do this? No. Must I do that? No. Why did it happen? Well, Jesus doesn't say while you were asleep. That's what happened. We're responsible for this. Jesus is just telling us the solution. Here is the solution. Verse 29. But he said, no, lest in gathering the weeds, you root up the wheat along with them. While we are in this world, we will have access to bad seed. It's going to happen. We're going to have access to bad thoughts. Jesus told us we're not of this world, but we're in this world. Maybe what we need to do is go and look for some mountain somewhere other than here, it's a mountain called Summit, away from the general population. We give everybody the same type of clothes, and we pipe in the same type of music and the same type of television, and we all think the same. Maybe that's what we should do, right? No, he doesn't ask us to do that. We are his feet into this world. We have to keep sowing on behalf of him. So the dilemma is solved this way, verse 29. But he said, no, lest in gathering the weeds you root up the wheat along with them. That makes sense. So I'm not going to be the one judging. Jesus will when the angels come and they collect the harvest. So here is the decision from verse 30. Let both grow down. Let both grow together until the harvest. That is the end of the age, according to verse 39. Until the end of the age, and at the harvest time, I will tell the reapers, verses 39 to 41 tells us those are the angels, and they will gather the weeds first and bind them in bundles to be burned. That is hell, verse 42. But gather the wheat into my barn, verse 43, that is heaven. So who's going to be judged first? Will the Christians be judged first, or the unbelievers be judged first? See, if you really believe the Bible, and I do, you realize that Jesus is going to first come and judge the unbelievers. He's going to take them away first. And he will have very special people doing that. He'll have his angels doing that. And they will be able to know everything. And so right here, listening to me right now, we might have one believer and 99% unbelievers. Or we might have 50-50. Or we might have 99 believers and one unbeliever. Only Jesus knows. And our obligation is not to go through and to say, okay, you're on the roll, you're not on the roll. Or to say, this is the Lord's Supper and you may take it, you may not. Whose supper was this? The Lord's Supper. He gets to make that decision, doesn't he? See, we're not into that business. We're just into sowing seeds and letting the Lord take care of it. That's where we are. So what I want to do today is a little bit unusual. I want us to look in the application to some negative effects on the brain. I want us then to look at some positive effects on the brain, and then I want us to look at some illustrations. So I know that you've heard this from theology, but look at what it looks like from brain science. And in the last 10 years, there's been a lot of good things done in brain science that confirms the Word of God. Now, Miss Helen, I don't need that. I believe the Bible. I believe that's all I need. But this strengthens my faith when I see that's actually the way it works. So the first thing I see is that stress shrinks the brain networks. You can see a normal brain cell, and you can see a brain cell that continually has cortisol on it. So just by way of letting you really see this from the start, if I want to gossip about someone here, anyone, I want to gossip, I have to hold in my brain a negative thought. That negative thought is going to produce cortisol. Now, cortisol can be a very good thing. For instance, if I'm in a panicked situation where I see somebody's going to attack me, immediately my brain is going to put cortisol in it. The cortisol is going to up my blood sugar, up my blood pressure, and I'm going to run away and I'm going to get away from the thief, and then I'm going to feel so good that I got away, and endorphins is going to flood my brain, the cortisol is going to go away. See, without cortisol, we will die. We need cortisol, but we don't need continual cortisol on our brain. So think about what you are putting in your brain. Think about what you're thinking about. What does Jesus ask you to think about in Philippians chapter 4 from verses 4 through 8, Okay, here is another one. There is a person who has had so much cortisol on their brain that they've gotten depressed. That's one of the side effects of having cortisol. Stress is probably the number one producer of depression. So you see somebody who's depressed, you see somebody who's not depressed. Okay, let's look at the next one. There you can see every single area of your life is affected by negative thoughts, by stress, by cortisol. Body, mind, behavior, emotions, every area of it. You can't take away even one little thing. Now let's go to one more, and this is for those of you who know a little bit more about chemistry than what I do. We have several people who have just become nurses, and we have some in that profession, and they can look at that. But right in the middle, you'll see there's cortisol. And you'll see how it happens. And cortisol is right here in the epistasis of your brain, the lower part where the episodic memory of your brain is. And so it's affecting everything. It's shrinking your brain, you know that? It's doing so many negative things. Here are some of the things that cortisol will do. Prolonged exposure to cortisol in your brain. It will be premature brain aging. Anybody want to age prematurely? Just keep stressing yourself out. You will age prematurely. Weight gain, depression, anxiety, limit of production of new brain cells, and so on. And this is a very short list of what cortisol will do. Well, let's go on to some of the positive things that the brain does. So we have the happy hormones right now. These are endorphins. It's a list of 1 of 5. And what you can do to produce these, and there's all 1, 2, 3, 4 of them. And we're just looking at the last one, endorphin, as affecting all of those. If you want to have those, you need to be into diet, exercise, positive thoughts, meditation, relaxation. Smile. Yeah, here's one. If you force yourself to smile, and you look like Joker in one of those Batman movies, and you're stretching your face out like this, just the fact that you're stressing your facial muscles out is producing endorphins. Your brain can't distinguish between reality and non-reality. So it gets a signal and it says, okay, let's do that. Vigorous exercise, chocolates, spicy food. Who of you knew that spicy food, in fact, the spicier, the more endorphins? Because your mouth is on fire and your brain picks it up and says, I better put endorphins in there to compensate for this. And so we have spicy food, we have exposure to sunshine, being optimistic, happy, laughing. 10 minutes to 15 minutes a day will produce it. Crying, okay, this person's crying. There's stress here, I better compensate. So your brain gives you endorphins again. Being silly. So you say, there's a brain, oh, look at that one about exercise. Here is, on the left, is you sitting on the lazy boy. On the right is your brain after walking. Now, Dustin, which one do you think we should be doing? Isn't that crazy? I mean, when I see that, I don't ever want to sit on a lazy boy again. And now I know why I prepare my lessons walking, because that's when my brain's working, right? Okay. Let's see, is there another one under that? Oh, that's the amount of thoughts your subconscious has in a second. Establishing the core temperature of your body, your heartbeat, everything, your blood pressure. Your subconscious is taking care of everything like that. So you literally become what you think. We have the placebo effect, we have nocebo effect, we have solution, is our thoughts. Let's see, do we have one more on that? Jeff, there we go. That was a knee surgery done in Finland. And they did a study with several people, published in all the major journals. And what they did is, they did a placebo surgery. They got permission from the family. The patient didn't know it had been placebo surgery. Immediately, those that had real surgery, they had a lot of relief to the pain. But those who didn't, they didn't immediately have relief. But in 1 year, there was no difference between anybody at placebo surgery and those who had no surgery. Isn't that amazing? And why? Why did this happen? Because the brain, the most powerful body in your body, thought you'd had the surgery. And so it started the process of healing. Do you have another one there under the positive? Okay, that is, under hypnosis, somebody was told that they are having a cigarette put on their arm. And it was just somebody's finger. And the brain really believed, because the subconscious can't differentiate between reality and non-reality. So if you are fixated on what the Bible is saying, and you're putting positive things in your mind, you're releasing endorphins instead of cortisol, your brain will believe it's real. And what you think will happen. Now, you can also put these things in your brain. This is probably Lady Gaga. I'm not into who everybody is, but this is somebody who wrote a song, and teenagers and young people are listening to this over and over and over again, and the subconscious can't distinguish whether it's real or not, and for the subconscious, it becomes real. And so you know what? You become what you're putting in. Think about the graphic videos that people have. You know, I'm thinking about, Brian, the worst things I saw growing up. We didn't even have TV, so I can't rule that in. And I think, what was the most violent thing I saw? And then I think about TV games, Wii games, and PS1, and whatever it is. And I'm thinking about the nature of the graphic violence that young people are seeing. And I'm thinking, the subconscious doesn't know that that's not real. And they're putting it in the brain all the time, and they're fighting, and they're trying to figure out and solutions. You know, I don't know how all this is going to turn out, but when I see these things, I realize that we have an obligation to take the word at face value, and to realize that when God said, put life in you, He really did mean it. A psychiatrist wrote the following. He said, set a definite goal. Don't run yourself down. Think why successful, not why not. Trace your attitudes to when you were a child. Change the image that you have of yourself. Yesterday, several ladies found it very interesting on Facebook, a big store, like a mall, where there were two entrances. And it was probably to where ladies would go buy clothes, because I didn't see any men walking in there. And the one sign on the left said beautiful, and the one on the right said average. And you get to choose which door you want to go through. And by far the majority chose average. But when I think about who we are as Christians, I think we're beautiful. And we just don't have that programming in our mind. What I would like you to take away from this lesson today is think about going home and getting a little card or index card and writing one thing down that you really, really want to achieve in life. A few years ago, we at Summit said, as a church, we really want to see ourselves grow. And I looked at the attendance, Billy, the last 4 Sundays, and I saw for the last 4 Sundays, our attendance, 3 out of the 4 times we were over 200. I'm thinking, oh, wow. Maybe there really is something to this. We have this idea in our mind. We say we want to become a light on a mountain. We want to become something to a community. What is it that you want to achieve spiritually more than anything? And I can't think about a safer goal than that, because I know Jesus would want you to achieve that. But you can say, I want to, some of you need to increase weight. So you need to put a goal of, I want to increase my weight. Some of you might say, I need to lose so much weight. Or fitness, I want to run or walk, X amount a day. Spiritual goal, to achieve holiness, I will stop doing this and I will start doing this. Relational goals, go on a weekly date. Financial goals, save 10% or give 10% or whatever it is. And then right at the bottom, on the back of the card, Matthew chapter 7. Seek and you will find, knock and the door will be opened. Ask and it will be given to you. Write these types of things down where Jesus says, whatever you need, I'm going to give to you. Proverbs 23 verse 7 that I have on the back here says, for as he thinketh in his heart, so is he. So who knew when Jesus said through Paul in Philippians chapter 4 verse 4, rejoice always, again I say rejoice. Let your gentleness be known to all. When he said these things, when he said, be anxious for nothing, but in prayer and supplication, let your request be made known unto God, with thanksgiving. And God will give you peace that transcends all understanding. And finally, brethren, think on these things. Who knew that he really meant it, and it really was factual? And I believe the Bible. I don't need this to believe the Bible, but for some of you, and for me also, actually, it did strengthen my faith. And it did make me very aware of what I'm thinking about. So here is a thought I want to ask you right now. What is stopping you from being baptized? If you need to be baptized, what are you putting in your brain and who's putting it there? What does God say? What does Jesus say about that? Jesus says, why don't you try this? Die to the world, die to the things of the world. Let me put my seed in you. Die to yourself. Let my word